Carl Jung understood something most of us have forgotten in the noise of modern life. Thinking is a tool, not a lifestyle. It is meant to serve you, not consume you. But we live in an age where thinking has become compulsive. We are always in our heads, always evaluating, comparing, planning, regretting. Our minds run like machines without rest, spinning stories and fears, fantasies and worries. And the more we think, the more we believe it is necessary. We tell ourselves we are being productive, rational, prepared. But in truth, much of what passes for thought is noise, mental static. It is anxiety in disguise. It is control dressed up as logic. It is fear trying to wear the mask of certainty. Jung was not against thinking. He was a brilliant thinker himself. But he warned us about the danger of over-identifying with the mind, the danger of making the intellect our only God. When you think all the time, you do not give space for anything else to speak. You do not hear your intuition. You do not feel your body. You do not touch the unconscious. And the unconscious, according to Jung, is not some chaotic void. It is the source of wisdom, creativity, healing, and transformation. The unconscious holds the parts of us that are too deep, too wild, too powerful for our rational mind to contain. It holds the archetypes, the dreams, the inner guides, and the ancient memories of what it means to be fully human. To ignore the unconscious is to sever the roots of your own soul. And constant thinking is one of the ways we do this. It is a wall we build between the surface and the depths. It is a form of self-protection. If you stay in your head, you do not have to feel. You do not have to remember. You do not have to face what lives in the dark corners of your psyche. But healing, real healing, requires descent. It requires silence. It requires space between thoughts. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. And this journey does not happen through thinking alone. It happens through dreams, symbols, shadows, and silence. There are moments when the best thing you can do is stop thinking and simply be. Moments when stillness is more valuable than logic, when presence is more healing than explanation. But to do this, you must learn to let go. You must release the grip your mind has on your identity. You must stop believing every thought you think. You must allow yourself to be guided by something deeper, something older than the voice in your head. This is not easy in a world that worships mental activity, in a culture that equates busyness with worth and thought with power. But this is exactly why it is essential. Because in the silence beneath thought, you discover who you really are. Not a machine for analysis, not a planner of outcomes, but a living soul. And your soul does not speak in thoughts. It speaks in images, in feelings, in symbols and synchronicities, in the sudden pull of longing, the ache in your chest, the strange dream that wakes you at 3 a.m. The soul is not rational. It is not efficient, but it is honest. And if you listen closely, it will tell you what your mind cannot. It will tell you where you are meant to go, who you are meant to become, what you have forgotten, what you must reclaim. This is the voice of the unconscious, and it is always speaking. But you have to stop thinking long enough to hear it. Thinking has its place, but so does not thinking. So does waiting, wondering. So does trust. When you allow space, life begins to speak to you in different ways. You notice signs. You feel inner shifts. You are guided without knowing how. This is not magic. This is the intelligence of the unconscious. It is older than language and deeper than reason. And it has been with you all along, waiting for a quiet moment to surface. When you stop thinking all the time, you come back to yourself, to your instincts, to your feelings, to your breath, to your body. You begin to remember what it feels like to be alive, not just mentally alert, but spiritually awake. You begin to feel the presence of something larger, something sacred, moving through your life. This is not the absence of thinking, it is the restoration of balance. You begin to see how thought has shaped your world like a sculptor shapes stone, but you also begin to notice the cracks where light seeps in, places where thought cannot reach, but something real lives nonetheless. These cracks matter. They are openings. They are invitations to explore, not what you know, but what you feel, what you dream, what you intuit. Jung believed deeply in this inner world. He believed that each of us carries within a vast landscape, full of symbols and patterns that repeat not only in our personal lives, but across cultures and centuries. The archetypes, the wise old man, the hero, the shadow, the child. These are not just stories. They are psychic realities. They live in us, whether we know them or not. And they do not speak in the language of the intellect. They speak in myth, in metaphor, in mystery. To live only in the thinking mind is to deny this dimension of yourself. It is to flatten your experience of life into logic and utility. But you are not here merely to function. You are here to transform. And transformation cannot be engineered by thought alone. It must be allowed. It must emerge from a place deeper than decision. This is why thinking all the time becomes a trap. It closes you off to emergence. It prevents the unknown from entering your life. And the unknown is not your enemy. It is your teacher. Jung knew this. He taught that to become whole, you must make contact with the unknown within you. You must dialogue with it, not control it, not analyze it, but surrender to it. This surrender is not weakness, it is the highest form of inner strength, because it requires humility, the kind of humility that says, I do not have all the answers. I cannot think my way through everything. I must listen to something greater than my own mind. And this is where true wisdom begins, not in cleverness, not in complexity, but in stillness, in spaciousness, in receptivity, in letting the world speak back to you in ways your thoughts cannot interpret. When you stop thinking all the time, you make room for insight. And insight is different than thought. Insight comes as a flash. It is whole. It arrives fully formed. It is not built by logic. It is born in silence. And often, it changes everything. When you live only in thought, you live in the past and the future. You live in memory and anticipation. But when you return to stillness, you return to the present. And in the present, something sacred is always unfolding. Life is happening, not as a concept, but as a direct experience. You notice the feeling of your breath, the weight of your body, the softness of light. These things may seem small, but they are not. They are doorways. They are the anchors that pull you out of your head and into your life. And this is what Jung ultimately wanted for all of us. Not to be ruled by our minds, but to integrate them. To bring the thinking self into harmony with the feeling self, the instinctive self, the imaginative self. Because the mind is not bad. It is just not meant to be the master. When you let it rule alone, it becomes tyrannical. It worries, it obsesses, it isolates, it feeds on control and perfection. But when it is brought into relationship with the unconscious, with the soul, it becomes a servant of something higher. Then thought becomes clear. It becomes creative. It becomes aligned with something meaningful. And you begin to live not just from ideas, but from depth, from presence, from connection to something alive within and around you. You become whole, not perfect, not finished, but whole. And wholeness, Jung taught, is the goal of life. Not happiness, not success, but integration. This integration begins when you dare to stop thinking all the time, when you allow the silence to rise, when you let the unknown move through you, when you become a vessel rather than a planner. This does not mean you abandon thought. It means you take it off the throne. You give it its proper place. And in doing so, you open the door to a different kind of life. A life rooted in mystery, guided by depth, and nourished by something far older than logic. Something wild, something wise, something sacred. You begin to trust the process of becoming. Not the plan, not the schedule, not the reasoning, but the deep, non-linear unfolding of who you are meant to be. The final step in this unfolding is not about achieving some final state, but about learning to live in dialogue with your inner world. A life in which thinking is just one voice in the chorus, not the conductor of the whole symphony. When you are constantly in your head, your life becomes narrowed. You begin to live from only one layer of consciousness. You forget the wisdom that arises from dreams, from the body, from silence. You forget how to feel deeply, how to simply be without judging or naming every sensation. But when you begin to loosen the grip of compulsive thought, something else starts to breathe inside you. A softness, a spaciousness. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the space in which those thoughts appear. And in that space, you are free. Jung often said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become yourself if you are only thinking all the time. You must also feel. You must suffer. You must question. You must descend. The journey toward authenticity demands your presence, not your perfection. And presence is not a product of thought. It is the still attention beneath thought. It is what remains when the noise quiets down. It is what sees clearly without judgment. And it is from this place that true transformation begins. Because you are no longer reacting from the surface of the mind, but responding from the depths of the soul. This is the essence of Jung's work, the healing power of depth. He did not offer quick fixes or formulas. He offered a path that winds through the shadow and into the light, a path that honors mystery and myth and metaphor, a path that requires the courage to face what you would rather avoid. And what you often avoid is not some external obstacle. It is the unbearable intimacy of being fully awake. To be awake means you must feel it all. The sorrow, the joy, the uncertainty, the awe. You must become large enough to hold contradiction. You must become strong enough to meet the unknown with open hands. When you stop thinking all the time, you give yourself back to this fullness. You remember the parts of yourself that were buried under the noise. You reconnect with the creative source within you, the same source that shapes dreams, births art, moves tides, and whispers through intuition. You begin to sense that life is not something to be solved, but something to be lived. And that the questions that matter most do not have neat answers. They have only depth, only silence, only presence. It is in this silence that you meet yourself, not the mask, not the persona, but the true self who has been waiting all along. That self is not always convenient. It will not always fit into your plans. It may disrupt everything you thought you knew. But it will be real. And realness is what heals. Jung believed that every soul carries within it the blueprint for its own unfolding. But the blueprint is written in symbols, not spreadsheets. You must step out of your thinking to read it. You must step into the unknown and let it guide you. This takes courage, but the alternative is stagnation, a life ruled by habit, a life dominated by anxiety, a life disconnected from the mystery of being alive. When you stop thinking all the time, you begin to notice the pulse of life itself, the silent rhythm that moves through all things, the rhythm that does not need to be understood to be honored. You begin to walk in tune with this rhythm. You begin to trust it. And in that trust, you find a deeper kind of security, not the false safety of control, but the groundedness of surrender. You no longer need to force clarity. You can wait for it. You can live the questions. You can allow the answers to come in their own time. This is the way of the soul. It is not rushed. It is not linear. It is not clean. But it is real, and it is yours. When you stop thinking all the time, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself, not as an idea, not as a label, but as a living, breathing mystery, a soul unfolding. Carl Jung was not just offering psychological advice. He was offering a spiritual path, a way back to wholeness, a way forward into authenticity, a way down into the deep well of the unconscious, where your true voice waits, your forgotten dreams linger, and your most essential self rests, not in thought, but in presence. So the next time you feel lost in your own mind, remember this: you are not supposed to think all the time. You are supposed to live. You are supposed to feel. You are supposed to be. Let thought rest. Let silence speak. And let the deeper truth of who you are begin to rise.